Well, hello there and welcome back to Red 5 Scale Models. We're going to do a quick tutorial today on winter camouflage, winter washes and general weathering techniques to really make your build stand out. Very straightforward, very quick, and get some really good results. So look forward to taking you through it. Okay, so we've got this was a very old Panther way back, and I've basically just kept it, chopped it up, used it for spares and to test things on. I've been testing a few different snow type patterns on there, and charring, because I was going to try and make one lit on fire a good while back. So what we're going to do first of all, I'm going to take just ordinary hairspray, cheap as you can get, the cheapest possible, and you're going to give the area that you want to kind of chip, whitewash, a good decent thick coat, and then you're just going to basically let that sit and dry for about an hour or so until you can basically handle it without getting kind of covered in all the sticky horrible hairspray. Wear gloves if you want, but just go and wash your hands. So yeah, when that's dry, I'll get back to you with the next step. Okay, so the hairspray is nice and dry there now, so what we're going to do, we're going to apply 3 different types of winter wash. On the back, I'm going to use a product from Precision Ice and Snow, and it's a winter camouflage, and I'm going to brush paint that on. I've not actually used that before. It came with some pre-snow. I've not really used it, so I'm going to have a go with that anyway. And I'm going to do 2 different types of winter wash. One's going to be a very faded, done kind of in the field. It's got muddy, it's got rain water, it's been washed off, it's chipped away, it's brushed against things. And then the other one's going to be a thicker kind of out the factory type of done properly with not in the field, let's say. So the first one I'm going to do is the thicker one, and basically even coats of a white acrylic. I'm using the Vallejo Model Air, just brilliant white, all over where you want it to be, nice and thick. And I put a bit of masking tape on there because you could use it if you've got like an insignia or a marking or something there you can have. Nice and thick, no kind of shading, just like that, let it dry. That's the bog standard, how everyone would kind of do it starting out, and it's acceptable, it's fine. But if you wanted to, you can kind of distress it a wee bit, and you can apply a bit of a mottling technique, and be a bit more random, and then you can kind of make it look as though it's been washed off when you start to do the chipping phase of things. So hit it all over. It's been done in the field, so it's going to be rough. It's not going to be giving you full coverage. There's going to be bits that are whiter, bits that are a bit more opaque. So just keep hitting it all over. Concentrate heavier in some areas, less so in others. Light dusting over the top just to kind of bring it all together. And then leave it at that. So you've still got a lot of the base coat shown through, and you're going to get a mottling effect. And then what you can do, have a look at it, stand back from it, add a few highlights, like a bit of thicker paint here and there. So it's kind of been done in a bit of a hurry, or it's faded through weather and through kind of water, ingress, stuff like that. So once that's dried, I'll get on to the next step, which will be chipping, and then we can weather over the top of that if that's how far you want to go with it. Right, so I've sped that up a little bit with the hairdryer, but it's nice and dry now. You can touch it, you can hold it and whatnot, and you might feel that that's as far as you want to go. That's fine. It's your build, it's your model. Do what you want with it, really. But what you can do, what we're going to do, is do some chipping. Now, obviously, the layer of hairsprays on there between the white coat and the base coat. I would highly recommend, before you put the hairspray on, making sure that you've had a good matte coat or a gloss coat, whatever, well, matte actually, on there. That's going to protect it, because this next bit, if you go too far, you can strip the next layer of paint and go down to the primer, even down to the bare model itself. But what the hairspray is doing is it's creating a barrier between the paint and the next layer. And when you wet the top layer, it kind of soaks through, and gradually what acts as like a bit of a mask, really. So you wet a brush, just an old brush, and put it on the area. Now you have to work with it, but just keep plodding away. Help if the brush was actually clean. Get a cleaner brush. You'll do. And basically wet it, and you'll notice that the top layer of the white is going to start flaking away. Now on this one, because it's meant to be quite factory fresh and new, you might not want to go OTT. You might just want to do it on the high traffic areas, like down the side here, on the corners, any areas where you think there might be a little bit of chipping away, like that, and you just work with it, and it gradually starts to flake off and gives you some decent realistic chips. It's a bit of a funny technique, because sometimes you can be very overboard with it, and once you've kind of gone too far, you've gone too far, and you have to kind of start again. So be very, very methodical, very quiet, very careful with it, and just work your way in small little sections until you kind of get the effect that you like. And it comes off in large sections. That's the potential risk with it. It's probably still a little bit too wet, the white, in fairness, but this is just a tester to show you the general concept of what we're doing. Areas around the bottom where the turret's going to be spinning. See, it starts to flake off. It gives you some nice, random, realistic looking chips through the whitewash. So you can leave that there if you want, and that's what we're going to do for this one, because that's, like I say, it's a factory fresh looking kind of paint job. It's really thick. The next one we're going to really go to town on, really batter up. Nice wet brush, wet the areas that you want to be doing. In this case, I'll be doing quite a lot of it, because this has been in the field for a long time. And then same again, very gently. Don't scrub it, you're not scrubbing the kitchen floor, just very gently. You can start to create scratches. You can even go in with a bit of a cocktail stick like that and just create random scratches. And because I put the first layer on so light, you're going to get, it's going to be nice and easy. The thicker you put it on, the more at risk you are of it coming away in chunks. So nice light mist coats. Wet your brush and just work it until you're happy with the effect you've got. And you can do the same for things like sort of Africa core. You can, where they've kind of put the dunkelgelb over the top, you can go and put the Panzer Grey down and then put the dunkelgelb on and chip it away like this, because they were really weather beaten, those vehicles. They were battered to hell. Go in with your I keep calling these chopsticks, I don't know why, cocktail stick, and you can do really fine scratches. It's all just about patience, such as the hobby, and taking your time and being nice and methodical, so that you don't get carried away and go too far. To see there, it's got a nice effect if that's kind of scraped rather than it's come off in a big chunk. But this one is very much going to be, it's been sitting in rain, in mud, in some sort of the eastern steppes somewhere, taking a battering. Whereas again, that one is literally factory fresh, it's new to the field, it's been done properly in a factory, not by some poor sod in somewhere outside of Stalingrad or God knows where, in a hurry. So yeah, and don't worry if you're doing it this way, if you take a great big chunk off, because it's all just about giving the effect that there is white paint on there. And then the next section we're going to do, when that dries again, we're going to do some streaking.
We're streaking! Come on! Come on! We're running! Come on! Woo! Woo! We're streaking!
In a few more bits and bobs to kind of make it a bit more lively on there. So let that dry, and we'll get to the next step. Okay, so what I've done, I've hit the whole thing with a gloss coat, and on this side too, because we're going to be doing some extra streaking and things on there, but very subtle on this side, because again it's going to be a newer looking type of finish. But on this side I've already started. I've taken some brilliant white oil paints, put them on a piece of card just to help kind of get the oil out, the excess oil, and I'm just getting an old brush. You can get a really fine tip one. This is, you can see the state of it, and where you think there's going to be any sort of paint streaks building up, because what this is going to do is hopefully give you the effect that the whitewash has been watered down by rain and ice thawing and melting on it, and it's flowed down the side of the tank. And then take a brush, dip it in some white spirit and dry it off so that it's just damp. And then you can just go down in a straight down motion. What I like to do, just to try and emphasize the actual the streak, is from the side, catch it and just drag it down like that. Catch it. Don't know if you can see this properly on there, but just catch it and drag it down. And then you're going to end up with some nice streaks that kind of show that the whitewash has run and it's faded. And then obviously you've got those bits that you did before where it's faded and chipped. Catch it and drag it down. And then you can keep doing this. For example, there, you can pop it on there, nice big thick blob, because that's obviously where it's not worn away, there's a bit more paint there. And catch it and just bring it down like that. And if you find that you've overdone it, it just wipes off, because it's oil paint. It takes ages to dry, so you've got plenty of time to work with it like that. Right, so we've done the streaking effect there, and before we put any other kind of matte coats or anything on, because what we're going to use for the next stage of streaking is some new AK weathering pencils, which I'm a big fan of. What we're going to do is we're just going to do a little bit more definition on these chips, and we're going to take some pure brilliant white. In this case I'm just using Tamiya's XF1, is it? XF2, sorry, and a 000 brush. Now I'm using an old one because I haven't sealed this and there's oil paints on there, and hell no am I going to be putting my brand new Series 7s on this.
Hell no!
And then areas where you think there's going to be a larger build-up of paint, very gently and carefully, in a kind of almost that type of action, basically like your hands shaking, like you've got the shakes. Pick some areas out where you think paint might have built up, might be a bit thicker, where they've gone a bit kind of heavy-handed with the paintbrush, airbrush, whatever you think in your little world, however the paint's been put on.
You're the creator. Anything that you want, you can build here. This is your world.
Just in areas, very gently and very lightly. Go around the edges of some of those chips, where it looks as though, and it'll give the impression of depth, because it looks as though the whitewash, the initial dirty layer of whitewash, has been chipped away, but there's still some there underneath. Very gently, and you'll get some kind of very rough 3D effect. And I'll go through chipping like this in a different video, but it's basically the same process. It takes a bit of practice, but use a very thin brush and take your time. And like I say, areas where you feel paint might have gathered, hard to reach places where it won't have worn away as much, add some scratching where the top dirty layer might have been taken off. Down over here, going a bit heavy-handed some places if you want. And this will not, because it's acrylic, it's not going to do anything to the oils that we put on there. Very, very subtle effect, but it's all adding to those layers, those bit of history as to what's gone on. And then what we'll do is we'll let that completely dry, hit it with a matte varnish, probably a Mr. Hobby matte, and then, excuse the arm, we're going to use these AK weathering pencils. They come in various different sets. I highly rate them. Okay, so the matte varnish is dry there now. And what we're going to do is we're going to use these AK weathering pencils to create some streaking and grime type of effects. I'm using a couple of rust options, a streaking dirt and a rust brown. And it's got to be a matte surface. It'll not really adhere to a glossy surface. This is probably still a little bit too shiny, to be honest with you. But it is just a test piece, so it's not going on any sort of final dioramas or anything. And then basically you take your weathering pencil. It's essentially just a watercolour pencil, and draw very faint. Don't you're not a 4-year-old colouring in. Very faint lines with it. This is always with weathering. Less is more. Put less on, you can always add more. Put too much on, you're screwed. Couple of different colours, couple of different tones. The streak and grime is particularly nice because it's like this yellowy, greeny, gungy colour. All over, because this has been sitting out in the field. It's filthy. Rust, be a little bit, when you're doing it on white, a little bit keener with the rust because it's very orange. There's different tones, but that little tiny dot, believe you me, will make a good old streak. And it has a nasty tendency as well to discolour the white paint sometimes and be a bit of a bugger to get off. And if you find it's not really adhering, or you do want that little bit more, you can wet it, give it a couple of seconds just to kind of absorb the water, dab it on something, and you can put tiny little dots. And then it's just a case of taking your clean brush, no white spirit or anything on it, moistening it in a cup of water, dry it off, and then, like you did with the other streaks, just drag it down. The beauty with these is if your surface is nice and matte, they'll adhere to it, but you can get it off without having to use any sort of aggressive spirits, anything like that. And then just drag it down, and it's all adding to the effect of just general wear and tear. See, you've got a nice rust streak there, and it's subtle, so that when you get close to it you can kind of see the effect, but at a distance it blends all together and gives you an overall general feel of what's going on. If you think you've taken too much off, or you want to add a bit more in, like that, add it on, drag it down. So the aim of the game here is not big, blatant, obvious streaks, dirty things like that. It is subtle, and building it up over time until you get the result that you want. And then stopping. It's learning to stop with this type of thing. It's the hardest part I've found. It is always a kind of, ooh, that's a nice colour, I'll add that on. Oh, I'll add that on. And then you realise it's too late. I've added too much stuff. Go on last. So the last thing I'm going to do, and I've not actually tried this, is use this camouflage paint. Now it has been sitting on my shelf for God knows how long. I'm going to zoom back out again. Has been sitting on my shelf for God knows how long. It is really thick, probably too thick, but let's give it a go. What we'll do, get a nice clean brush, because this kind of stuff I'm not a cat and house chance from putting this through my airbrush, put it that way, because it's like a thick paint. I'm going to work on the proviso that what you're going to be looking at here is something that's slapped on with a brush, probably something in the field, much like this one, and then just basically some fella with a brush painting it on. This is, in terms of scale, probably the more realistic option. It's going on kind of like that, but I can already tell that I prefer that. Random, do some thicker parts. Like I say, I've not used this before, so we'll have to see how it dries. I'm probably, if I'm using it wrong, feel free to put it in the comments. Link to any videos how to use it, because like I say, I've not used it before. But this is how I would imagine you would use it, kind of, and how it would have been done in the field by whichever poor sod had to do it all over the tank. Brush marks on there. It's gone on quite thick. It's probably the most realistic in terms of what would have actually happened, but I can already tell I probably wouldn't bother doing that again, but it is an option. And because the hairspray has been on there, I haven't really put any gloss on there. You can do the same thing, let it dry, and you can chip it away with the hairspray if you want, but for me, it's always going to be that. You can use this, it's a good technique, like I say, for things like if you're doing British armour in the Gulf, where you've got your NATO green and brown camo underneath, and you want to put the desert camo on. US armour, like Bradleys and stuff like that, you can do it on there. You can do it on, pardon me, Africa Corps. Vehicles are especially good. They were painted, the Dunkel Gelb, in a real hurry, shipped over there, battered by sand and dust and air and winds and God knows what. It's a really good way of looking. Okay, so we've finished. This had all a good chance to dry now, and the camouflage, it looks alright. It's probably the most realistic in terms of you've got the little brush marks and stuff on there. I can't see myself using it unless I'm going to do something like perhaps blend the two effects together, where maybe 60-70% of the tank's painted like that, and then maybe it's a small section like that with the rest, and there's a guy standing there with a paintbrush, making it look as though he's done it. The white section for things like World War II and that I probably wouldn't use. More that's probably for likes of UN armour, or any, like if you're doing any of the V bombers, the white, the flash white. This is the kind of effect that I really like. I like to weather things. I like to make them look beaten and bruised and battered. I don't really like factory fresh. It's nice and streaky. It's got all the oil and dirt and grease, and when you hit it with some mud and splashes of mud and things like that, it'll look really effective. So yeah, one last thing before I go. You might have seen this 30 core mug in the corner. I've got one for the 50th Northumbrian Division. There's a guy I follow on Twitter called Unarmouredworld, Matt at Unarmouredworld. I would highly recommend you have a look at his website. I'll put a link in the description, but he does all sorts of merchandise, t-shirts, hoodies, badges and things, based on World War II unit regiment insignias, and they're pretty cool. And I got a couple of mugs for Christmas, and I really like them. You can probably tell by the accent I got the 50th Northumbrians for obvious reasons, and 30 core because, well, it's 30 core. So yeah, check it out. Check it out. It's got some good stuff on there. But yeah, getting back to this, it's a really straightforward, cheap, easy thing to do. It takes a little bit of practice, but it'll help you with overall chipping, and I'll cover that again in another video. I hope it's helped somebody out there, at least one person. If you like what you see, subscribe to the channel or give me a follow on Twitter at Red5Models, and we'll catch you again soon. Thanks.